So I thought I would do the challenge of recreating the very core essence of Agile software development that you would find in products like Jira and build that in Notion. And I feel this is a good way to demonstrate how to think and reason about Notion and how to construct bigger systems. And this is a great way of exploring that. So first of all, we're going to jump into and look at what Agile software development is. So Agile software development, if you're not familiar with it, is an iterative approach to project management that helps teams deliver value to their customers faster. And it comprises of, and it's a very basic sense, user stories, epics and sprints. And that's what we're going to model in Notion. And of course, there are more aspects to Agile, but this is pretty much the core that I need to deliver my software, which is Flowtelic, which is actually what I'm using here. So what is a user story? A user story is an information explaining what the end user is trying to achieve and the benefit it brings to them. An example of this would be, as a note taker, I want to enter double square bracket so that I can link my notes together. Okay, so it's a very small piece of functionality that provides some functionality to the user. Now, user stories could be a collection of individual features that essentially have a master user story, a feature that you would release to your end customers, and that is called an epic. So an epic is a collection of user stories that provide an overall benefit to the user. And these may be written down like a user story, such as a note taker, I want bidirectional note and a bidirectional note editor so that I can connect my thoughts together. So the user story in that case could be, one way to do that is to do the double square brackets. Pretty much exactly what I'm demoing here in Flowtelic. And then finally, what we're going to model in Notion are sprints. So a sprint is a time-boxed interval of which a collection of potentially shippable user stories are delivered. In other words, every 2 weeks, you commit to what you're going to do in those next 2 weeks. You work on them, you deliver them, and you could press that deploy button and send that out to your users. It's designed to allow you to avoid 6, 8, 10 months of development when the market may have shifted, when those features that you thought of a year ago are no longer valid. So it's called Agile software development, is because you are adapting and learning as you build. And yeah, it's a great way to build software. So let's jump into Notion. We know roughly now what we're trying to model. So I'm going to create a page here called Agile Project. We can rename that later. Now, in here, we want to be thinking about the sub areas. Ultimately, everything is going to evolve around these user stories. And I'm going to call these tickets, because a user story may be a type of ticket, but we also might want to track bugs or just general tasks or chores that we want to do. So within here, we're going to go and create a user stories page. Now, we're going to use the feature of databases within Notion. So if I go and search for a database, and I will put it in line, and actually I will get all user stories. I'm just going to hide that because it duplicates. Hide that. Okay, so now we want to model out what is a actually I should have called it tickets. So let's call that tickets. So here we have a ticket name. We're going to keep the name. I'm not going to worry about the tags. I'm just going to remove that. I want to keep it fairly lightweight for what we're trying to achieve. And then, so I have got in my notes over here, a ticket has a type. So we're going to create a type field, and we're going to give that a select option. And we're going to add some options. So I've said we might have a user story. We could call that story or user story. That would be one option. Oh. User story, enter. Then I might have a bug, and I might have a chore. So chore is generally something that you need to do, like I need to clear out the file system, the log file system. It's a chore that you have to do. And of course, we can go and colorize these user stories. Let's give that green. bugs feel like it should be some kind of red, and a chore can stay as blue. So now when I create something, I can say what type of thing it is. Excellent. Now next I want to create a status, and this will be part of our workflow. So again, I'm going to use a select and I'm going to call this status. And the options here, we're going to have a range of options. I like the idea of triage, and this is when something new comes in. So it could be a feature request from a user, and I will put that in, and it needs triaging. If it's a bug where it's just been reported, it needs triaging. Have we seen this bug before? Is it really a bug, or is it, some other kind of issue that's going on? All those kind of things. Then in terms of the workflow, we're going to say, okay, things start as triage. I'm also going to say we might just have ideas. So this is like our backlog. So it's stuff we just want to capture, we're not ready to work on. We'll leave that in there as ideas. Then they move through to triage, requirements. So we might want to start refining how we're going to do this. What are the requirements that we need to think about? And then ready for development. So now we're ready to actually build the thing. They can come into a sprint if they're ready for development. In progress, which means I'm working on it essentially. Ready, in review. So this is where we're maybe sending it off to a team member to double check. Ready for release. So that's where we've reviewed it. Now we haven't actually put it live yet. And then finally, once it goes live, it goes to complete, or we might just close it if indeed we decided actually it was a duplicate, we just need to close it. So now we can track some kind of workflow status of our tickets. Brilliant. And now, before I continue here, this is the very bare bones, I'm gonna create, let's create a user story template, because what this allows us to do now is we can create a story and say, right, it's a user story. So let's create a new template, and this will be a user story. And here, I might wanna say, just seed in that as someone, I want something so that I get some benefit. Okay, that's sort of seeding in the prompt that I need to put in, and then I will put let's put a section here, an acceptance criteria, and let's see if I can spell this correctly with the spell check. There we go. So acceptance criteria. So how do I know I've delivered this piece of software correctly in my user story? So here we write it as given, and then like some scenario, when user does an action, then software should do what? Okay, so it's a template. I would replace this. So for example, when I said earlier with my example here, user story. So I've got the user as a note taker. I want to enter double square brackets so that I can link my notes together. So there I would say, given an open note with some other notes in the system, when I press the double square brackets, then I should see a list of things I can click on. And then I would add some more, given when there are other notes in the system, when I've started typing after the square brackets, then I should narrow down and search for the notes that it applies to. And I can create multiple of these acceptance criteria. So there you go, that's a template there. So now when I go to create a ticket, and I can go create a new user story, that populates the template into here once it's finished thinking, and now we've got a prompt to create a user story, which is amazing. I'm just going to remove that for the moment. Okay, so let's put that in. Let's actually do that ticket so that we've got something to refer to now. So this would be a ticket for double square bracket note linking, whatever I want to call that. And then here I would create a user story. I'm going to say the status, it's just an idea at the moment, and it's a user story. I could populate actually in that template. Let's go do that now. If I go to my template and edit that, I can just set the type to user story because I know I've created the user story template here. So if I, in theory, if I create a new one, let's see if this works, go create a user story, it's populated that type there, which is fine. Let me delete that because I'm not going to work on this one. Okay, so double square bracket note linking. So I say as a note taker, I use the bold just to highlight the template as I want enter double square bracket, I can't spell, so that I can link my notes together. Okay, you get the idea. And now I can put in those given I have a note open with other notes in the collection. When I press double square bracket, I'd probably say when I type, for example, pressing and typing, can't spell bracket, then I should see a list of notes that I can choose from. And then I can copy this into another one and create my acceptance criteria. So now when I just want to work on this, I know exactly what I need that software to do, and I can build up my tickets here. So now we want to start thinking about epics. So let's create a new page and we'll call this epics. And let's create a table. We're going to create a new database of epics. Okay. Now, epics are the parents to tickets, essentially. So all tickets, not all tickets have to be in an epic, it is optional. So here we would say the name of the epic. So in my case, this would be note linking is my epic. I don't need tags, I'm going to get rid of that. And now I want to start rolling up what tickets relate to. So I'm going to go to the tickets here and I'm going to edit, I'm going to add a new relation to my epics. So, and I can choose whether I want to show my tickets on the epics. I won't for this purpose, I can change that later. Go add relation, and now I can say this note here relates to my note linking epic. And now my epic has a backlink to all the notes, all the tickets that are related to this epic. Great. So now I can build up a set of epics and start organizing my tickets into that. And that's cool. Next, we want to be able to work on these tickets. And we do that with sprints. So let's now create sprints. Okay, and then let's create a table here. Create a new one. And we can rename sprint, so sprint number. So let's say I've got sprint number 1. I can call that whatever I want, it's just a text field. You can't change that, you can't get rid of that. So again, we don't want tags. It doesn't make sense for what we want. Okay, what we do want is a start and end date for the sprint. So we'll put date here, but we can, when you set a date, I could say it has an end date, and I'm going to do from there to there, and that's a 2-week sprint, and I can do that. One thing I like to do, and I've been inspired by another YouTuber about Notion, is just doing a square bracket there. Sorry, not square bracket, 2 less than symbols. So that means when you're linking things together, you know which is the current sprint you're in. And then, so sprint 2, you could put that ahead of time. So I could say from there to there, for example. And something's gone wrong with my dates there, obviously. So first date goes there. I know that's not the current one, so and why that's useful now is in my ticket, I'm going to add a field here which links to our sprint. Okay, and now select this as a relation, and I'm going to link to my sprints. I don't need to show the tickets specifically. We'll build something specific for that in a moment. So now when I go and link this into the right sprint, sorry, I didn't put the right property there. Relation, link to sprints, add relation is what I was supposed to press. Okay, now I can just search, if I want to do the current sprint, I can just search for less than, and then that will find the current sprint. Okay. And then as I move to the next sprint, I remove the less than and put it on the next one. So a bit manual, doesn't do automatic. I mean, this is where proper software will do these things for you. So now I know when this thing is going to be worked on. Now in my sprint, the question is, how do I know what I'm doing? I might just call this sprint 1, just so it looks a bit neater. Now I can put a table in here. Okay, not wrong kind of table. Database is what I meant. Let's do it properly. Sorry. Clear database. Right, so let's put an inline database, and this is going to show me tickets in the sprint. Okay, now I've done this wrong at the moment because I've actually just created a brand new table. What I want to do is something slightly different. So I'm going to remove that. So delete that. And I'm now going to actually do it again. A database. Oh, sorry. It's a view, database view. Let's have a look at the options here. Table view is what I want. I can tweak this later. So let's create a table view, and we're going to link to all our, I call it all our user stories. Now, it's quite interesting that's come up there because I made a mistake earlier, and I want to show you how I'm going to fix that. So first of all, I'm just going to create a new view. These are all the tickets essentially. I'll do a table view, but I want to filter it where the sprint contains. I'll do the advanced view, sorry. So where the sprint contains, because I'm doing the current one, I will do that. So that is itself, essentially. If you're doing a template, there's a way to, we'll move this into a template and I'll show you how that works. So here now I can see all the tickets in this sprint using that rule. First of all, let's go back. Let's edit. How do you? I've hidden the table name, and it's in here somewhere. I can't find it. Let's not worry about that. With a bit more time, I would be able to find that. Okay, so here we go. Now we want to create a sprint template, so let's do that. So using the same thing, the dates will be defined when you create it, obviously, but we want to put a table view. We're going to link to all the user stories. So, but the filter, because we're in a template now, the filter will be slightly different. So we're going to filter of the sprint we're about to create, so contains, and then you've got this thing called sprint template, and I can do that. And then when we come out of here, so we save that, we've got a new sprint template. So to test this out, I'm going to create a new ticket. Let's say this is showing backlinks on a note, and that's a user story. I can go and create the user story template there, but let's say I want to do that in sprint 2. So I select sprint 2, and now when I go to sprint 2 and I use sprint template, it will automatically put that table in, and that will show me everything that is linked to Sprint 2, which I've just created, which is really cool. Okay. Next, we want to start tracking some views of how to go through our sprint workflows. So we've got our sprints here. Let's create a table where we say, so current sprint. So this is where we want to see what we need to work on, and we want to move it through some kind of Kanban style board. So here's the current sprint. We want to create a database view. So database view, we could do a calendar view, we could do table view, sorry. Here's our table view. We want to show all the tickets. Now we can do this. Here's the challenge. We want to only show tickets that are linked to the dates of which the sprint currently is. This is going to be fun. How are we going to do this? So first of all, what we can do is we can go into the tickets and we'll pull in the sprint dates. So let's see if we can work with that. So sprint dates. And that will be a roll-up using the relation to the sprint, and the property we want is a date. Okay, so now we have the sprint dates of when that thing is going to be done. Now in the current sprint, we can, let's say, view this. So we'll add a view. Actually, I'll change the view type of table here, and we'll call this Kanban view. Okay, so we have a Kanban view, but we just want the current sprint. This may not go exactly how I'm expecting here, but first of all, let's filter by, or we have to filter it by a given sprint. Okay. So these are everything, well, I guess that's everything in that sprint. We can't do it, we could do it by dates, but yeah, we'll leave it like that for now. And then we want the layout to be a board. So now I can see things as cards. However, it's gone by type, which is not ideal. So now when we go to board, we want the grouping to be not type but status. There we go. So now I've got this thing in idea. I can reorder these. So ideas would generally go over here, close would go all the way over here. We've got no status. Triage probably after ideas. Complete in progress. So the ordering needs completely rejigging to be sensible. Requirements probably come after triage. Yeah, it's pretty much done in a reverse order. Ready for development, in progress, in review, ready for release complete, and we'll stick notes status over there. We can hide some of these as well if we really wish. So, for example, I might want to hide ideas and all of that here. Normally, that would be in ready for development if I'm ready to do it and it's in a sprint. And if we go to the board and group by, we can just turn off ideas, triage, requirements. Generally, when you put something into a sprint, it should always be ready for development. So ready for development, in progress, in review, ready for release, complete or closed, and no status. So now I've got a much cleaner view for my current sprint. So let's say we move on to the next sprint and everything's moved over and we've completed. Then of course, what we will want to do is just change the filter to change it to the next sprint. So sprint 2, for example, and that would show, we'll do multiple sprints if I want. If I want to be clever, I could create a view per sprint and then do it by the dates. That's another option. But essentially, the workflow you want to get to, what am I working on? go into it very quickly, move that back to sprint 1, move all my tickets over, and then do a bit of cleanup, when you move on from one sprint to the next. Okay, next thing is, let's say I've worked on some tickets and they've moved over and they're complete. I want to create a release that I can now, well, actually generally I would put them into ready for release. So now, how do I release this and communicate what I've worked on to my customers? So we'll create releases, and that'll be a table. Let's just create a new database called releases. And then I could say version 1.0.2, could be the release name. Again, we're not using tags for this kind of thing. I'll put a release date. Let's put a date here. So I could say this has been released on the 30th of June, for example. And I might want to put a quick template in, release template, and let's do a section here called release notes. Now, before I finish this, I want to link those stories to the releases of which those stories were released in. So let's go back to the tickets. Let's open up one of these. We'll add a property and we'll say it's a relation, and we'll say it relates to my releases. I could put that, we'll do a table to view what's in the release. We'll call that, rename that to release. It's clearly not saved my relation because I didn't click the right button. So releases, add the relation. Okay, so now I could say what release. I'm going to release this into that one. Let's say I had completed this ticket as well, and that's ready for release. I'll put that in the same release. Let's say I've done both of those. Now, in my template for releases, so here are my release notes that I want to type, and then tickets in this release. It's a database, a table view. We're going to link to, again, our tickets, which I've called all our user stories, or all user stories. This is everything, and now we just want to filter it where the release matches the one that we're releasing. Okay. I might want to just template something out in there again. So in this release of Flowtelic, we have, we have some consistency of how we do release notes, and we can then copy and paste that into an email or something. So now when I go here and I create a release template, this should match, and I should see those two things there. So those are the two things I'm releasing. Let's say I created v1.0.3. Again, let's say that was next month's release or whenever that is. Create the release template. I shouldn't see any tickets now in there because it doesn't match version 2. But if I create a ticket and release it against version 2, I will now see that in the list. So now I can go and write my release notes for that. And of course, I can tweak the status here so I know that everything has actually been completed and is in the release. So I could potentially filter this where the status is complete as well, or ready for release. I could do those two, so I know what's ready to go and what has gone. Okay, so that's a nice way of doing that. The next aspect, so to take this up a notch, because I use the Git software version control system, one of the things I like to do, and is a feature from other software that do agile management, is to be able to give me a nice command based on a branch name that relates to this feature. Then I can go create a pull request. So let's say I've got a ticket here. So I'm going to create a property called branch. It's a free text property. So I might call this bracket note linking, like so. But I'm very lazy. I want it to give me a formula that will give me a command that I can just paste in my local repository and go and create that branch based on its naming. So here I could go create a formula, let's edit this, and if I say this will be, so if I can get this right, clearly not because I can't see the keyboard, git checkout -b, so do a checkout and create the branch, and then I want the prop called branch. Is that what I called it? And now I get this command here. I can presumably copy that somehow out of here. Oh, there you go. Is that little copy symbol? Oh, interestingly, it gives you a copy to clipboard on that, but not on here. So thank you very much, Nation. But at least I've got some idea of that command. It's my first time trying this. I didn't realize you can copy and paste out of there. But you can see how I can build in like the git command helper, like so, just to make my life a little bit easier. And if I called that for example, feature slash, so that could be my branch name, and I can use that now in my workflow, so I get a bit of consistency. And then I might have a link, so a URL to the pull request, just so I can now track back those changes. So once I've created the pull request, I can link it into my ticket so that if I do have someone else on my team, they know where to find the pull request for the ticket and join the whole lot together, which is pretty awesome. And generally, I would probably put the release after that. Okay, let's take it up a notch. Let's say I've got these epics, but I don't want them just hanging around. I want to know when they're complete. So we want to add a property to define whether it's done. Now, what defines if an epic is done? Generally, if there's no tickets related to that epic. Okay, so here we will essentially create, let's think this through, a roll-up to the ticket status. And before we do that, we want to make our tickets nice and simple to say whether something is done or not done. So how would we do that? We can use a formula. So a formula will say, I've got we'll figure it out. So a formula is if the prop status what's the notation is? If the prop is status, presumably it's double equals complete, then we will output, so it's a comma, output complete, incomplete. And hopefully, if I do that, so this says it's incomplete because, why would it say it's incomplete? Because the status is ready for release. In theory, if I go complete, then it goes to complete. So now I've got something that controls complete, incomplete. So I've reduced all these options down into complete or incomplete, and we're going to use that because that makes our lives a lot easier. There is, so we'll just put that complete question mark. Actually, I won't use the question mark because I'm going to need that later on. Slight caveat to this though is it's also, if it's complete, and then we want an OR operator, which I have to remind myself how easy this is to do. Let's say if it is complete, then it's that. Otherwise, we could say, can we do an OR? Let's say we can do an OR. OR prop status is equal to closed. And let's see what that does. And hopefully, if I now go complete or closed, it says complete, or I can go in review and it says incomplete. Okay, so now I have a way to determine, I'm gonna leave that one ready for release, whether all the tickets inside this epic are complete or not. So let's now go back to our epics, and we're going to create a roll-up. So we're going to edit this property. We're going to call it tickets rollup to relation. Oh, I need the relation first. I believe, is that right? Or yeah. So let's create a relationship. So when I created the original relationship to the Epic, it said, do I want to create a property for there? And I said no. Had I said yes, I would have had this relation already sort of in place. So I'm going to create a relationship to all the stories, and then we see what happens. Let me think this through. So we need the backlink, which is here. We've got all the things that backlink. Okay, so I'm a bit stuck here, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. What I'm wondering is that option in the ticket to link to the Epic, whether that backlink is managed now. So I've got that relation, but I haven't got the backlinks wired in. So let's just test this out. Let's create a new relation. We'll call this new Epic. We can swap them around. It's a new Epic where it's a relation to the Epics. It says show on Epics. Add a relation property on the Epics. When you relate to a page that is in database, it will automatically relate back. That's what we need, and that's not what I selected. Now, the question is, can I go back and edit that field? So edit property, show on Epics, turn it on, update relation, and that's going to relate that. Okay, so that has achieved what I think we've achieved. So bear with me while I just show what the result of that is. So now when I go to my Epics and I look here, I now have all user stories backlinked, and in there I can see that. So now I can go and create my rollup using the all user stories relation. The property we want is not status, because that's the list of things, but the complete formula there. Show original is absolutely fine. So we've got one ticket linking to here, incomplete. Let me go into my tickets, this one here. I'm going to link this to the same Epic. So I've got two tickets. One is ready for release, one is complete. Now when I look in here, or they're both incomplete, I'm going to make one of those tickets complete so I can test the combination of them. Go into my Epic. Okay, so I have two tickets. I can hide this. I generally probably wouldn't want to put that on there, so always hide. We'll call this ticket status. Okay, and it's a list. It's a roll-up list of things. What we want to do now is convert this to a number. How many incomplete tickets are there? So let's create a new property called incomplete tickets. This is where Notion basically is quite limited, because I've got the word incomplete and I've got the word complete. I need to do something funky with this so that I can get that as a count of how many completes there are versus how many incompletes. In fact, I'm going to say, incomplete tickets. So we're counting the number of times incomplete appears in this property, and this is now treated as a string with commas. So let's create a formula. In this formula, we're going to do something along the lines of, if we have from the prop, so we've got the prop ticket status. Okay, that should just repeat the same thing. Great. What we want to do is we want to boil down the text complete and incomplete. So it's now a string. You notice the space has gone missing, so that is literally part of the string, end of the string. That's sort of a roll-up. So internally it's still the individual properties, but when we use it here, it's now a string. Remove the space. Okay. we want to replace all the text that says incomplete to a character. And I'll use the underscore character. And then all the text that is anything else to an empty string. So I'm left with a number of underscores where the word incomplete appears in that text. And then we do a length on that. So the number of times that underscore appears is then the count of how many incomplete tickets there are. Make no mistake, this is a pain in the backside, but it's doable and we're going to do it. So here's my text here. I'm now going to say replace all instances from that text where the word incomplete appears. Now I'm using incomplete rather than complete because word complete appears in incomplete and you have to then worry about casing and internal matches and things like that. So I'm using the longer version. So if we have the word incomplete, replace that with an underscore. Okay, so what does that actually do? Let's have a look at that. See that word there, incomplete, is now an underscore and everything else is left untouched. Okay, now, because I know I'm using incomplete or complete as text and there's a comma, I know that my underscore means that it's incomplete. Which now means anything that isn't an underscore, I can just strip that out. So I can do another replace all outside of this. Okay. And I need to replace everything that isn't an underscore with an empty string. Okay. We're going to use some regular expression here. So find. This is a character, set of characters that not underscore. So any characters, that's what the square brackets means, that is not an underscore, so I'm using the negative, make it an empty string. Now I end up with that. And the final thing I do is I edit it. And I have a number of underscores that represents each ticket that is incomplete. I can do a length on that. And lo and behold, I can now track how many incomplete tickets there are on that epic. To prove this works, I'm going to go into my ticket. I'm going to go to the one that is incomplete. And I'm going to say, I'm just going to close that. And now my epic should say 0. Fantastic. Now, we just want to know whether the epic is done or not. And if you'll notice that if you've got no tickets in here, the end result will be it thinks it's done because there's nothing incomplete. So I can hide this, so incomplete tickets. Well, I'll do that in a second. I can add a property called status. And this will be a formula. This is not something I control via the tickets, not via the via property of the epic. And I can say if the prop incomplete, so incomplete tickets, check that in a second, is equal to 0, then it's complete, otherwise it's incomplete. Let's see if that works. So 0 tickets, the status of this is complete. Go into a ticket, just pretend that I'm still working on it, it's in progress. Go back to my epic, and now it says my epic is now incomplete, which means I can take this view, I can add a view to this and give this some kind of board view where the relation, we're going to group by our new formula that we just created. So not relationship, but status. And lo and behold, I can now see all my complete and incomplete. It doesn't know about the complete one yet because I haven't got any in here because the formula is generated, not like a list of tags or something. So I can't drag these because it's a formula. It will sort of try to write to the formula. It's like, no, it's read only because it's a formula. But I can control that via my tickets. So if I control command click. Yeah, so if I open that in a new tab, go into here, complete that, go back over here, that's disappeared. Interesting. It's lost. There you go. It just needed a refresh. Didn't like me doing a dynamic update because it didn't update the columns. There you go. I found a little room for improvement in Notion. And this would be my board view of all my epics. This is my list view of all my epics, and I can go in and I can just hide. The good thing about these roll-ups and formulas is that once you've created them, you just hide them, and they just work magically in the background. Yeah, I don't know why that's still there. I'm trying to hide them, but they're still. Let's hide anything we don't need. Okay. So this really is a exploration of Notion where I'm basically building up a map of how to create a view of this project management. You've got user stories, you've got epics, you've got sprints, you want to create a view of your current sprint, and sort of looking at the reasoning of how to approach that. And what I really like about this is I can now get a view of the higher level things, so like my epics, and I can use the roll-ups, and I can use these, they're kind of chaotic formulas, but once they're in, that allow me to track the status, convert it to the number of things that are still open, convert that to a text that means something, and then I can view that on a dashboard such as this board here, so I get an idea of when and where things are. We could take this even further, where we could look at the tickets, look at the sprint dates, so you roll that up through the ticket to the sprint date, and then calculate the maximum date of those tickets, so you can look at when your epics are scheduled to be released, and then you can communicate that if you need to. So I'm going to try this out with Flowtelic, and that's the note-taking app that I am building, where basically I started using some other software, but working on this on my own, some of those features are just a bit of an overhead. I want something really lightweight that just allows me to document what is it I'm doing, keep track of the task list. In here, I could go into a ticket and just create just simple checklists of things I need to do in that ticket so I don't forget. And it's really, I like Notion because it's just so lightweight to be able to go in and just change something. You don't have to go into edit mode. And it's powerful enough that if I reason about it and want to create some improvement to my workflow, I can do that. Obviously, there's going to be limitations. I'm not going to get burned down graphs of how many tickets I get through in a given sprint, and the accountability of making sure that things are tidied up and all that. But for me, in what I'm doing, it's just a nice way to start collating the backlog of things, figuring out the priority of what I want to work on things, using the Kanban views to kind of drag the ordering, bring them into stuff that I'm working on imminently, and most importantly, go through the tickets, through their workflow. So where I've got requirements, for me, that's really important that I'm not architecting or designing things when I'm actually at the coding level. I've reasoned about it and I've thought about it in advance, and things like getting the designs in place and making sure I really have, basically I'm not going to paint myself into a corner as I build this thing and realize, okay, I now need a screen to do X, but I hadn't thought of that. So it's about capturing that part of the workflow, and that's worked really well so far with the development of the app, which if this is your first time seeing the app, it's my passion and love for note-taking and building my own knowledge system, and I wanted something that helps guide me through that process, uses the Zettelkasten sort of way of workflow initially, and then with focus mode that I basically discipline myself into doing study sessions and organizing my notes and creating YouTube videos and blog posts and things like that. It's all part of my bigger why. I love building it. Really excited for the project. And I just wanted to have a bit of fun in Notion and show what it would look like building an agile workflow. So it's been a chaotic video. Obviously, part of it is experimental, trying to figure out what was going on with this. Hopefully it's been useful. Hopefully it's shown some of that how to reason about certain things when it goes wrong, or how to approach a problem in a certain way. So yeah, that's how you build an agile workflow in Notion. If you're interested in following the journey with the app, go to join.flowtelic.com. There's a wait list, and you'll get a link to go straight into the beta, and there I'll be doing the updates for as the app is developed. Thank you very much, and catch you in the next one.